Please note, in order to comply with YouTube policy, this free version of the audiobook has bedroom scenes redacted. If you would like to read the full text, please get the ebook or print version of the story.
Chapter 1. Austin. Being a cop is tougher some days than others. Today was one of those days where I dealt with the absolute dregs of society. I usually can muster some hope that most people are intrinsically good and can be redeemed, but the criminals I dealt with today are pure evil. Today was the kind of day that makes me question why I bother to do what I do. I believe in law and order, but some people are beyond help. I'm the kind of bone-weary tired where everything hurts. If I didn't know better, I would swear that even my hair hurts. Today my job absolutely drained me. I can barely summon the energy to walk home. Knowing I need to shift out of this all-consuming funk, I decide to call my brother Colt. He's been through an impossibly tough time with losing his wife, and I haven't been there for him like I should be. He has tried to connect with me a few times over the past several months, but it seems like I'm always too busy to talk. It's time for me to make that right. Hearing Colt's voice on the other end of the line is an instant pick-me-up. He's a calm, reassuring presence in the storm of chaos that my work life has turned into. "I'm sorry I haven't checked in with you more often," I tell him, truly meaning it. When he remains quiet, I add, "I just don't know what to say." "No one does," he assures me. "I went through it and still don't know what to say." He's letting me off the hook too easily. I should have been there more for my grieving brother, even though we live more than halfway across the country from each other. A better man would have found a way to be more supportive to him when he needed it. "I hate it that you're having to deal with this alone," I tell him, hoping the sincerity rings true in my voice. "About that," Colt says, "I'm not exactly alone. Maddie's sister, Sadie, is here running the ranch with me." "Oh right," I say in a flat tone, remembering Colt mentioning that his wife inexplicably left half of the sprawling ranch Colt loves so much to her she-devil of a sister. "Sorry about that too, man. When it rains it pours, huh?" "You know, it's actually been wonderful having Sadie here," Colt says in a tone that conveys true happiness. Instantly picking up on it, I tease my brother, "Hold on. Do you actually like having Sadie there?" Colt lets out a delighted chuckle before answering, "Oh, I more than like it. I'm in love with her." My step falters at this news. Colt couldn't have surprised me more if he'd fallen from the sky in front of me wearing polka-dotted pajamas. Shaking my head, I say, "Wait, I thought you hated Sadie." "It's a long story, but it ends with her being the one for me," my brother says matter-of-factly. "Well then, I'm happy for you both," I tell him, fully meaning it. After pondering it a moment, I ask, "Do Maddie and Sadie happen to have another sister for me?" As expected, this makes Colt laugh. "Sorry bro. There aren't any more sisters." "You're monopolizing them," I grumble, teasing him. Turning serious, I say, "It's wonderful to have you back among the living. I was really worried about you." "It's amazing what a difference a phenomenal woman can make in an otherwise miserable life," Colt tells me. "I wouldn't know since my dating life is practically non-existent," I grouch. "Your time will come," Colt assures me. "Yeah, right," I answer, not believing it for a moment. Since I'm almost to the restaurant where I ordered my takeout dinner, I say, "It's been great catching up with you, but I'm gonna have to let you." My sentence breaks off as I turn the corner and gawk at the shocking sight before me. "Everything okay, Austin?" Colt asks me, sounding truly concerned. Not wanting him to worry, I force myself to respond. "Yeah, I'm fine. But do you remember our high school chemistry teacher, Ms. Summers? How could I forget her? I redacted almost every night of junior year while picturing her in those short skirts she used to wear." His voice is far away, as if he's lost in the memory. "Ew man, too much information." I scrunch up my face in distaste at the mental image he has forced into my mind. "Oh, like you didn't do the exact same thing," he accuses me. "True," I admit, thinking back to the vivid daydreams I used to have about the hottest teacher at our school. "What about her?" Colt asks, yanking me out of my trance. I blink to clear my vision, but the sight before me remains the same, so I say into the phone speaker. Ms. Summers is standing in the middle of a busy intersection, wearing a wedding dress, and causing a traffic jam.
Chapter 2. Penny. I have no idea how I ended up here in this ridiculous situation. I'm a good person. Or at least, I try to be. I work hard to make a positive difference in my students' lives as a high school science teacher. I pay my taxes and bills on time, and I try my best never to hurt anyone's feelings. I'm a big believer in the golden rule of treating others as one would like to be treated. That's why none of today's events make any sense. I don't deserve any of this. Like most brides, I've been looking forward to my wedding day for years. Granted, I've been waiting a few years longer than most, but that's neither here nor there. A woman's wedding day is supposed to be the most magical time of her life. At least that's what romantic comedy chick flicks and princess fairy tales have always led me to believe. We've been planning for today for months. Well, I've been doing most of the preparations, but that is to be expected. After all, a wedding is the bride's big day. The groom really just needs to show up, smile as the bride walks down the aisle toward him, say "I do," and give his newly minted wife a kiss. The guys have it easy with weddings, as is the case with so many of life's big moments, most notably childbirth. I wanted this wedding to be perfect, so I planned out every little detail, from the crystal bedazzled bottles of bubbles for our grand exit from the church, to the perfect shade of seashell pink linen napkins for the reception. This day was meant to be flawless. I needed my wedding day to be perfect, to provide wonderful memories during the years of boring marriage that would follow. I care about my groom, Brady, but our relationship isn't the passionate, soulmate-level love that I thought I'd share with my spouse. We love each other, but we aren't madly in love. Perhaps I'm settling for less than I deserve, but I have convinced myself that burning hot, all-consuming passion quickly fizzles out. True friendship, deep admiration, and honestly liking each other are the foundations of a long-lasting, contented relationship. That's what I keep trying to tell myself, anyway. I replay in my mind the huge fight that Brady and I had last night at the rehearsal dinner. I had assumed he realized that a high school teacher would not willingly take on the surname Cockburn. That would just be asking for constant ridicule from my students. I love traditions, but I'm also a modern woman. I've always felt it should be the woman's choice of whether she takes her husband's name or not. Apparently, Brady doesn't feel the same. When the preacher did the rehearsals practice presentation of us as husband and wife, and utilized my current last name of Summers, Brady tried to correct him.
"She'll be Mrs. Cockburn now."
"I'm keeping my last name," I told him firmly.
"You'll be my wife, so you'll take my name."
He had responded just as firmly. My face scrunches as I remember just how adamant he'd been about it. Normally, Brady is relatively easygoing, but he obviously feels quite strongly about this topic. His eyebrows had shot up in surprise when I let him know that I feel just as strongly about it, but on the other side of the issue. He thought I'd been embarrassed to take his name, which isn't at all the case. Well, it's mostly not the case. The ensuing argument made the rehearsal dinner a tense, awkward affair. It didn't help that my sister and maid of honor, Maya, showed up late for the rehearsal and was distracted and snippy all evening. Maya is beautiful, flighty, and she likes to be the center of attention. I'm sure she just didn't appreciate me being in the spotlight. After the rehearsal dinner finally ended, Brady tried to convince me that it was my duty as his wife to take his name. I pled my case that it was my choice what name to use, and that I wouldn't be any less his spouse if I kept my current name. We ended up in a stalemate that sent us both to bed angry with each other the night before our wedding. I'd woken up this morning hopeful that we could put all of that behind us, until I received the text from Brady that read,
"Are you ready to become Mrs. Cockburn?"
Trying to keep the peace, I answered, "I'm ready to marry you." The three little dots didn't start bouncing to indicate he was typing a response. The silence lingered and made me worry that this disagreement might actually ruin our wedding. To make things even more stressful, Maya was late, really late even for her. I was completely ready with perfect hair and makeup, wearing my gown and veil, but there was still no sign of my maid of honor. I tried calling her phone again, but it went straight to voicemail. Furious, I fired off another text to her, "Where the heck are you? It's almost time for the ceremony to start." Trying my best not to cry over the disaster this day was turning into, I paced the bridal suite where my sister and I were supposed to be giggling and bonding with each other. When my dad had barged into the room, a tear finally spilled over one of my eyelids, despite my desire not to mess up my makeup. My father looked so dapper in his tailored black tuxedo, despite the worry lines etched into his face and drawing down his features. "Today isn't going at all like it's supposed to, Daddy," I'd blubbered as soon as he closed the door behind him.
"I know, sweetheart. You need to get out of here now,"
he'd said, already using his palm on my lower back to usher me toward the back door of the bridal suite. "What? Why?" I'd asked him, thoroughly confused.
"The police are on their way to question you and likely take you into custody. Your sister is missing, and they say they have evidence proving your involvement in her disappearance,"
he told me, practically shoving me out the back door. I'd responded that it must be some sort of misunderstanding and that I would stay to help clear it up and assist in finding Maya. But my father had said in a grim voice,
"My buddy on the police force says the evidence is pretty clear-cut, Penelope. Your mother and I love both you and your sister. We'll do what we can to help get this straightened out."
He had held onto my arm to ask me.
"You don't know where she is, do you?"
I was so hurt by the question that my voice had barely worked when I answered, "No, of course not." Remembering my father's disappointed expression sends a chill racing down my spine. It almost felt like he believed I was in some way involved in Maya's disappearance, but he couldn't actually think that. Could he? Glancing down at my beautiful white beaded gown, I had remembered that this was supposed to be my wedding day, so I said to my dad, "I can't just leave." "What about Brady?" My dad's expression and tone were both grim when he informed me.
"He isn't here, sweetheart."
The news was disheartening, but it didn't surprise me too much. I only had a moment to absorb it and grab my purse before Dad shuffled me outside and closed the bridal suite's exterior door behind me. Then I did the only thing I could think of, even though it didn't make any sense. I ran.
Chapter 3. After I hang up the phone from my chat with Colt, I stare at the scene before me. No matter how much I try to convince myself otherwise, it's clear that Ms. Summers is standing in the middle of the road in a wedding gown. I rush forward to help her. "Ms. Summers, are you okay? We need to get you to safety. Come with me." She turns her frantic, wide-eyed gaze toward me. I gently take her clammy hand within mine to lead her to the sidewalk. She follows me without question. Sometimes my police training to use a firm, commanding tone comes in handy, since it provides an instant sense of authority. Once we're safely off the road, traffic resumes with only a few more honking horns, cursing yells, and raised middle fingers over the delay she caused. We both ignore the angry outbursts. Looking down into her enormous pupils, I say, "I'm a police officer and my apartment is nearby. Let's go there so you can sit down and drink some water." I briefly consider stopping by to pick up the Chinese takeout I had already ordered, but quickly decide that the extra stop would be too much for Ms. Summers. We're better off going someplace quiet and private, so I can assess what is going on and determine if she needs medical attention. I'll just have to make do with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for dinner. The woman trails behind me as I lead her to my apartment. I'm surprised she doesn't even question following me inside, since I'm in plain clothes and didn't show her my badge. She must be really out of it, because I doubt that she has any memory of me as a student in her class. I was barely an above-average student. With any luck, she might remember my brother Colt. He always did well in school and was super popular, while I hid in the shadows and did my best to blend in. Once I have her settled on my dark brown leather sofa, I retrieve a tall glass of ice water from the kitchen. After I hand it to her, she takes a small sip before setting it down. Her gaze is locked on the floor in a faraway, glassy stare. She doesn't even look up when I sit down next to her. "Do you remember me, Ms. Summers? My name is Austin Zimmer. You taught me chemistry about a decade ago." Deciding to be fully honest, I amend my statement. "Well, you tried to teach me chemistry." Realizing that came out wrong and that she might think I'm insulting her teaching abilities, I add, "I wasn't exactly an honor student." She turns to look at me then, but her eyes and tone are both lifeless when she says,
"Austin."
I'm not sure if that means she remembers me or if she's just repeating my name, until she adds in the same flat tone,
"Colt."
"Yes, that's right. Colt is my brother," I fill in for her, strangely thrilled that she seems to remember me, or at least that I am related to Colt. Hoping to gently ease her into talking to me, I add, "Colt's been having a tough time lately. His wife passed away, but he's slowly getting his life back on track." When the woman doesn't respond, I try to make a smooth transition to her current problems. Tipping my head down to try to catch her gaze, I say, "It looks like you may be having a tough time too." Do you want to tell me what's going on? She stares at the ground for so long, I begin to fear she's going to ignore me. When her words finally emerge, they come out in a rush.
I was supposed to get married today, but my sister is missing, and they think I had something to do with her disappearance.
Her eyes are filled with heartache when she says,
I would never do anything to hurt Maya.
I know, I say automatically. It was a stupid response. I don't know any such thing. Just because Ms. Summers is still impossibly hot and she was a caring, resourceful teacher, does not mean that she wouldn't harm her sister. My years on the police force have taught me that things are not always what they seem. In fact, in my experience, they rarely are. That might make me a jaded jerk, but I've seen many clean-cut professional people that commit atrocities that I never would have imagined. Just because someone looks and seems sweet and innocent doesn't mean that she is. Except, something in my gut tells me that Ms. Summers is being sincere. Part of me wants to believe her, but I still maintain a healthy level of skepticism. I'll take a look at your sister's missing person case file and see what we can find out, I tell her. Her eyes widen in alarm at this news. That's not a good sign, but I decide to hold off on any judgment until I know all of the facts. After I retrieve my work laptop and log in, Ms. Summers sits silently by my side as I research her sister's case. Turning to look at the distraught woman, I say, the good news is that she's been missing for less than 24 hours and there's already an active investigation. The first 3 days after a person disappears are the most critical. Ms. Summers nods but remains stoic. I feel a strange urge to reach out to comfort her, but know that type of gesture would be unprofessional and likely unwelcome.
What's the bad news?
She asks, sounding terrified to hear the answer. There is some rather incriminating evidence against you in the case. When I turn my laptop so she can see the screenshots of her threatening messages, the beautiful woman shakes her head in confusion as she reads them, sways from side to side, then promptly passes out. I almost drop my computer as I lunge forward to catch her.
Chapter 4. The world is blurry when I open my eyes. As my vision finally clears, I am greeted by the magnificent sight of a strong, handsome man holding me in his arms. I smile up at him, delighted by my present circumstances, until the reality of my messed-up life comes crashing back in. I lift a hand to my clammy forehead as I try to make sense of the past 24 hours. Eventually, I say in a croaky voice, "Those messages weren't from me. You can check my phone if you want." The gorgeous man stares down at me with a suspicious yet friendly gaze.
Checking your phone won't help anything, because you could have deleted the messages or used a burner phone.
His hand is warm and supportive on my back as I sit up. The simple friendly touch feels good, too good. As a former student and current cop who believes me to be involved in Maya's disappearance, this man couldn't possibly be more off limits. He sounds truly concerned when he hands me the glass of ice water and suggests,
Drink some of this. It will help you feel better.
I have significant doubts about that, considering what a mess my life has morphed into, but I obediently drink some of the chilled water. Surprisingly, it does help me feel a tiny bit steadier. Austin remains quiet as I drink the water and focus my efforts on not panicking, despite how much I need to right now. I appreciate that he doesn't rush me, even though he must have loads of questions for me. Eventually, I set the glass aside and say, I suppose you need to take me into custody. I had intended it to be a question, but my flat tone makes it more of a resigned statement.
Yes, I should.
Austin answers. When he makes no move to do so, I say, I know how bad this looks, but someone must be setting me up. I didn't threaten Maya, nor would I. Deciding to be vulnerable, I add, she drives me crazy sometimes and she can be a total pain in the neck. But I would never wish her any harm. She's my only sister and I love her more than words can say. Austin smiles at my raw honesty before saying,
I totally get that. Colt is an amazing brother, and I wouldn't trade him for the world. But he has some annoying habits that I don't miss one bit now that he lives halfway across the country in Colorado.
I nod. Maya is always late to everything, even if you tell her a fake, earlier starting time trying to avoid her tardiness.
I hate it when people can't manage to be on time.
Austin says. Me too, I agree. It's so disrespectful to the people who are punctual. Nodding, Austin reveals.
Colt is usually on time, but he used to like to hide things from me to make me late, like my homework or one shoe. Then he would laugh hysterically, while I frantically searched for it.
Oh, that would be super annoying, I agree. Enjoying this game of one-upmanship as a brief reprieve from thinking about my dumpster fire of a life, I say, Maya used to insist on going everywhere I went with my friends. Our parents would make me drag her along to parties or movies. I never got to go anywhere fun without her. Turning my head to the side, I add, now that I'm thinking about it as an adult, it was actually kind of a smart move on my parents' part. They had a built-in chaperone for me, and never had to worry that I would do anything wrong, because Maya would have been delighted to tattle on me. Austin nods, but doesn't agree with me this time. Eventually, he grimaces and says,
I think I was the culprit on that one. As the younger brother, I used to love hanging out with Colt and his friends, but he probably didn't view it as the wonderful blessing that I did.
Probably not, I agree, laughing. When my laughter subsides, I shake my head. It feels so strange to laugh right now. My life is an absolute train wreck, but you helped me forget about it for a moment. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Austin answers, seeming lost in his own thoughts. Eventually, he says,
You were one of my favorite teachers.
Really? I ask with a wide smile. He nods before adding,
Of course it didn't hurt that you were totally hot, and I was a randy teenage boy, but I always felt like you truly cared about your students.
I did, I answer before amending it to, I still do. I love teaching kids. It brings me so much joy to mold the minds of young people, and to watch their eyes light up when a difficult concept finally clicks into place in their minds. My face falls when I add, I guess I'm going to have to put my teaching career on indefinite hold until I get these accusations around Maya's disappearance cleared up. The school board won't want me working while there's any hint of scandal or wrongdoing attached to my name.
You're probably right about that,
Austin says, seeming lost in thought. Eventually, he turns to me and says,
I just can't bring myself to believe that you did this, Miss Summers.
His faith in me feels impossibly good, especially since my own father had seemed to doubt my innocence. Locking gazes with him, I say, Thank you, Austin. Unable to keep looking at him, I stare down at my lap as I say, You're all grown up now, so I think it's time for you to start calling me Penny. Austin reaches out to gently turn my face toward him. When I keep my expression downcast, he says in a husky voice,
Look at me.
When I obey, I lose myself in his hazel gaze as he says,
I am all grown up, and I'm even more attracted to you than I was when I was your student, Penny.
My breath hitches in my throat at his naughty admission, as well as his use of my first name. I love the sound of it coming from his lips. I never thought of Austin in a romantic capacity when he was a student in my class. But he's all man now, and he's so physically attractive and undeniably magnetic that my mind swirls with confusion. Part of me knows that he's off limits and forbidden, but being near him makes my heart race, in a good way. There are too many dreadful things in my life right now to even consider a fling with a former student and current cop, but I can't deny that it's tempting to think about. When he circles my wrist with his fingers, my skin tingles at his touch. My mouth falls open as I wonder where this is heading. In a deep voice, he says,
My strong attraction to you is making my mind fuzzy. That's the reason I'm doing this, while I try to figure out what to do with you.
With that, he deftly snaps handcuffs around one of my wrists and attaches the other side to himself.
Chapter 5. I should haul the irresistible woman straight into the station. My rational mind knows that, but my ridiculous heart refuses to believe in her guilt, despite the evidence to the contrary. Penny has grown even more radiant in the last 10 years. I grin to myself because it feels naughty to refer to her by her first name, even in my own head. The woman gives me a wide-eyed, shocked look when I snap the cuff to connect us. I can't take the risk of you escaping before I have a chance to look into this further, I explain.
I understand,
she says quietly. Since I long to reach out and cup her cheek, I force myself to refrain from acting on that urge by saying in a firm tone, If I decide that I believe you're guilty, I'll drag you to the authorities so fast your head will spin. She nods before saying,
Thank you for taking a chance on me. I know you could turn me in now and wipe your hands of the entire situation.
I wish it was that easy to rid myself of her, but I know that wondering about her innocence would drive me crazy. I need to see this through and find out whether she is guilty or being set up to look guilty. When I ask to see her phone, she uses her free hand to unlock it and gives it to me without question. That tells me that either there was never anything incriminating on it, or she has already wiped it clean. I take a perfunctory look, even though I know it's going to be fruitless. Before I know what is happening, I'm grinning like a fool at a picture of Penny making a silly face into the camera. The candid shot showcases her natural, effortless beauty, which is evident even when she sticks her tongue out to the side of her mouth and crosses her eyes. Forcing myself to focus on the matter at hand, I turn the phone screen toward Penny and ask in an all-business tone, "This is your sister in the photograph with you, right?"
Yes, that's Maya. We always goof off like that when we're together. She's one of the few people I am comfortable enough with to let my guard completely down and just be real and have fun. She never judges me or holds me to a higher standard since I'm a teacher, like my parents do.
As I try to gauge her sincerity, I look at her with so much intensity that she averts her gaze. I very much want to believe her, which in itself is a problem. I should be an unbiased observer, working to gather the facts. Instead, I long to believe that Penny is innocent. When I turn my attention back to the phone's screen, she says,
"There's bound to be a serious picture of her in there somewhere, so you can see what she looks like when she's not making silly faces at the camera."
"It's okay. They already have several current photos attached to her case file," I say, closing the photo app, since I know that looking through Penny's photos and seeing her relaxed, happy, and smiling on the screen is only going to make me that much more attached to her. I glance through her emails and texts but quickly give up and return her phone. Truly curious, I say, "I didn't notice many pictures or loving message exchanges with your fiancé. He must be worried half sick about you."
"I don't think so,"
she whispers. My brows cinch together before I say, "The man was ready to marry you today. Trust me, he's worried about you, even if you are a runaway bride."
"I'm not sure I was,"
she says with a half-hearted chuckle. At my questioning gaze, she continues in a somber tone.
"Brady didn't show up at the church, so I think I was jilted at the altar before I became a runaway bride."
"Wow, you've had a heck of a day," I weigh in, impressed that the woman isn't an emotional wreck.
"No kidding,"
she agrees. Giving me an ornery look and lifting our locked wrists, she adds,
"I always wondered if I might be handcuffed by a gorgeous man on my wedding night, but I never dreamed it would be a former student and cop who believes that I'm a kidnapper."
Her bold insinuation has me redacted. I shift my hips away from her, hoping she won't notice and be offended since she can't exactly get away from me right now. Forcing my mind to focus on responding, I say honestly, "I haven't decided yet what I believe. I'm just being cautious."
"I get it,"
she says before quirking a brow in my direction.
"I do have one question though."
"What's that?" Giving me a challenging look, she asks,
"Are you staying locked to me while I use the bathroom? Because I have to go. Right now." Chapter 6. Austin trusted me enough to release the handcuffs to allow for a bathroom break. I'm sure he's standing right outside the door, but I'm choosing to look at it as a good sign that he at least believes in me that much. Besides, it would have been horrifying to have a former student hovering beside me while I tried to shimmy this dress up and use the toilet. I'm sure he would have been a gentleman and closed his eyes or averted his gaze, but urinating right next to the handsome masculine police officer is not on my to-do list today or any other day. Unable to resist, I peek outside between the blinds of the bathroom window. It would make for a nasty fall if I tried to escape that way. Plus, I'm honestly not even sure if I should try to escape. Austin seems like he's fair and open-minded. He may just be my best bet for proving my innocence, if I can get him to believe me. Almost as if he can see me looking outside, Austin yells through the door.
"Don't even think about climbing out that window."
I chuckle before answering him. I don't need a broken ankle on top of everything else.
"So you did think about it,"
Austin mutters, but I hear his footsteps walking away from the bathroom's door. I shake my head, frustrated that he's so suspicious of me, even though he has every right to be, since the only evidence in Maya's disappearance case points to my guilt. As soon as I relieve myself and wash my hands, I begin trying to resituate the wedding gown. Deciding this is silly, I yell through the door, "Any chance I could borrow some casual clothes?"
Way ahead of you.
Austin answers. His voice is much closer than I had anticipated. Opening the door and peeking out, I'm delighted to find that he's holding a stack of comfy-looking clothes.
They'll be big on you, but it will have to be better than wearing that form-fitting, uncomfortable-looking dress.
Thank you, I say sincerely as I accept the offered clothes and reclose the bathroom door. I grin to myself as I pull on the soft gray sweatpants and enormous t-shirt. It was super sweet of him to think of bringing me the clothes even before I asked. Brady would have never been that thoughtful. I'd have been lucky to get him to bring me fresh clothes, even after I asked for them. His response would have been to tell me that my legs aren't broken and that I could get them myself. I had resigned myself to the fact that all men must be like that, but Austin sure doesn't seem to be. Of course, he thinks I'm a criminal, so he probably doesn't want me rummaging through his drawers unattended. After rolling the top of the sweatpants a couple of times, they stay on more easily. I tilt my head down toward my shoulder and breathe in deeply. Austin's clothes smell like fabric softener and something a little more manly that I can't quite put my finger on. Whatever it is, I like it. He even brought me white socks and a sturdy hanger for my wedding gown. I could get used to this type of royal treatment. Once I situate the dress on the hanger and place it on the wall hook, I open the door and pad back out to the living room. Austin takes one look at me in his enormous clothes and bursts out with laughter. I swipe a hand down my front, feeling self-conscious.
Sorry,
He says between chuckles.
you look adorable. I just didn't realize that I was such a giant.
His compliment makes warmth spread through my tummy until he adds,
We can stop by your place to get some of your own clothes on the way to the police station tomorrow morning.
The unsubtle reminder that I'm likely going to be arrested tomorrow is like a bucket of cold water being dumped over my head. I feel the color drain from my face.
Are you okay?
Austin asks me, instantly noticing my downcast expression. I nod my answer, not trusting my voice.
I'm going to change clothes and use the bathroom too. Can I trust you to stay here, or should I cuff you to the table?
Since it's such an odd question, I give him a perplexed look before answering. I probably wouldn't tell you if you couldn't trust me, would I?
Good point.
Austin answers, striding purposefully toward me. Almost before I even realize what is happening, I am handcuffed to the coffee table.
There we go. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
The blasted man has the audacity to smile as he turns and heads into the bathroom. I lift my chained arm as far as I'm able before muttering to myself, well, this isn't ideal.
Chapter 7. While I'm in the bathroom, I use the time away from Penny to think. The woman scrambles my brain and makes me do things that don't make a lick of sense, like letting her stay here tonight rather than immediately hauling her off to jail. Tonight is sure to be torture for me. The woman is practically irresistible, and I willingly signed up to spend a platonic night with her. Of course, I would never take advantage of the situation or my position of power by being intimate with her, no matter how much my traitorous body wants to act on that urge. I'm putting the job I love on the line with every moment I harbor her here, but something deep inside tells me there is more to her story than the current evidence seems to provide. My gut refuses to believe that she is guilty in her sister's disappearance, and my natural instinct rarely steers me wrong. A noise in the living room catches my attention as I pull on the Nike sweatpants I'm planning to sleep in. Without taking the time to put on my t-shirt, I fling the door open and walk out to see what's going on. If she found a way to release the cuffs and left, I'll be in big trouble. My gaze darts to the side table where I secured her. Since I don't see her, I'm on the verge of running to get my shoes to chase after her when I catch a whiff of her delectable floral scent. Although it could just be remnants from moments ago, something makes me circle around to the other side of the table behind the leather sofa. A whoosh of relieved air releases from my lungs when I see her stoop down, looking at my fish tank at eye level.
He's gorgeous,
She says of my iridescent blue and purple buddy. His name is Bubbles, I tell her, as I open the top lid of the tank and drop in a couple of his tiny food pellets. The fish swims up and eats his dinner.
Bubbles looks lonely. I think he needs a friend.
Penny tells me, sounding truly concerned for the fish. Oh no. He's a beta fish. They will fight other fish to the death, so they need to be left alone. I guess that means Bubbles is my spirit animal, I joke.
How sad.
Penny weighs in, and I can't tell if she's talking about me or the fish. Either way, it doesn't feel great. Well, he's easy to take care of and doesn't require me to be home a lot, so he's the perfect pet for someone with my job, I say, hoping to make the two of us sound a little less pathetic. Penny says non-committally before standing. Her eyes widen when she catches sight of my bare chest and abs. I work hard to stay in shape, so her look of approval feels wonderful, even though she quickly masks it with one of indifference. After I release her handcuffs, she rubs her wrist and continues her perusal of my apartment. It doesn't take long since there isn't much interesting here, other than Bubbles. I haven't really had time to decorate, I say, even though it's a lie. I've lived here 2 years and never bothered to try to turn the apartment into a home. After I pop back into the bathroom for my t-shirt, I rejoin her in the living room. If I didn't know better, I could swear that a flash of disappointment arises in her expression before she turns away. It's concerning how desperate I am to believe that she liked seeing me without a shirt. The mood quickly turns awkward, since I'm not at all sure how to entertain a jilted runaway bride and potential criminal who also used to be my teacher. This is a definite first for me. After folding my hands together in front of my stomach, I brighten with an idea. Do you want to watch a movie?
Sure, but can we get something to eat first? I haven't eaten all day. Well, actually, I haven't eaten much all week. Too many wedding jitters. I'm starving,
she says. Already heading toward the kitchen, I say over my shoulder, I make a mean peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Does that sound okay?
It sounds divine,
she answers, sounding sincere, even though I doubt she's truly excited about the simple meal. As I'm retrieving the ingredients for our sandwiches, I'm surprised how close she is behind me in my small galley kitchen when she says,
I don't want to be a pain, but do you have any other flavors of jelly?
I turn to gape at her before saying, as if there is any acceptable flavor other than grape. Her face is pinched with distaste, so I ask, what flavor do you prefer?
Any kind other than grape,
she responds as if the answer should have been obvious. I chuckle at her ridiculous opinion. Shaking my head as I wash and dry my hands, I say, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
I guess so,
she says as she retrieves her glass from the living room. While she helps herself to the drinking water jug in the fridge and refills her glass, she explains,
I'm going to need plenty of fluids to wash down a dry peanut butter sandwich, but that's still better than choking down one with grape jelly befouling it.
Chuckling at her vehemence on the topic, I take her unsubtle cue and spread only peanut butter on her sandwich. After adding some potato chips to both of our plates, I hand hers to her. She takes her plate to the table. Not wanting an awkwardly silent meal, I suggest, how about if we eat on the sofa so we can watch a movie?
Oh, that feels so naughty.
She teases me, but she's already moving to the couch. Instead of putting the handcuffs back on her, I sit down right beside her. As long as I can manage to stay awake during the movie, she won't be able to escape. Once I have the television on, I ask her, what would you like to watch? She thinks it over for a moment before answering,
Anything but The Graduate.
At my confused expression, she explains, it's a classic movie that features a reverse age gap romance where the woman is quite a bit older than the man. I don't see what's wrong with that, I say, unsure why that would bother her. Staring down at the carpet, she says,
I just thought it might make things weird, since I'm 10 years older than you, and we're spending the night alone with each other.
Why, Miss Summers, I didn't know you thought about me in that way, I tease her. A horrified expression arises on her face just before she says in a squeaky voice,
I don't.
Not wanting to embarrass her further, I focus on the television screen guide, but I can't keep the wide grin off my face as I realize that the thought of being intimate with me has at least crossed the gorgeous woman's mind. Now that's going to be all I can think about for the rest of the night.
Chapter 8. Austin starts a silly rom-com movie that features Adam Sandler. He likely chose it because he thought it would be something I would enjoy. Unfortunately, I'm not able to focus on it at all because I'm too busy berating myself for the stupid comments I made about the movie, The Graduate. Austin has been a perfect gentleman, and I'm sure he's not even attracted to his old teacher. So, why did I have to make things super awkward between us? It was kind of him to quickly drop the subject, but I still can't believe I even hinted at a romance between the two of us. It's inappropriate on so many levels. I used to be his teacher. I'm older than him. Today was supposed to be my wedding day to another man. Plus the big daddy of them all. He's a police officer who believes me to be a wanted criminal. Austin couldn't be more off limits to me, and I would be wise to remember that. But having his thick, heated thigh press against mine as we sit on his sofa is making that more of a challenge than it should be. When he laughs at one of Sandler's on-screen antics, I turn and smile in his direction, even though I have absolutely no idea what's going on in the movie. My mind is whirring in too many directions to enjoy comedy right now. He must sense my inability to focus because he hits the pause button on the remote and asks me,
Are you too worried about your sister to focus on the movie?
Relief surges through my veins at his question. Austin wouldn't ask me that if he truly believed me to be involved in her disappearance. Would he? I am worried about her, I answer honestly before adding, but Maya is the type of person who always lands on her feet. I'm sure this is just some big misunderstanding that will get straightened out soon. He gives me a long, assessing gaze before nodding his head once. I'm not sure if I passed whatever test he was giving me, or if I made him even more suspicious of me. Eventually, he offers,
We can turn off the movie and go to sleep, if you'd like.
The thought of our sleeping arrangements makes me even more nervous than sitting right next to him, so I answer, No, let's keep watching. It's a good distraction. Austin resumes the movie. He goes back to watching it, and I go back to worrying about everything under the sun, including my undeniable attraction to the man beside me. Everything feels strange as I sit so close to Austin. Even my breathing feels foreign, as I wonder if I'm doing it too loudly. Perhaps my breathing is too shallow, causing me to not get enough oxygen to my brain. That would be a preferable explanation for my current crazy headspace than believing that I'm actually going insane. It's almost like everything is magnified. Every sound and feeling seems more intense and jarring with Austin so near me. I'm not at all sure if I like it or not. I'm leaning toward not liking it, yet I have no desire to move away from him, even though it would probably ease my suffering. This entire day has been disconcerting in a way that I can't explain, even to myself. I should be mourning the cancellation of my wedding and worrying about my sister's safety, not remembering the sight of Austin's bare chest when he emerged from the bathroom without his shirt. The man clearly works out. The evidence is showcased by his wide muscled shoulders and flat abs. His shape tapers to a V at his waist. I even caught a glimpse of the delectable indentations near his hips. That quick peek at them practically made me melt into a puddle on the floor. Just remembering seeing his shirtless form has my heart racing as if it's trying to beat its way right out of my chest. It makes me wonder if I'm a horrible person to be thinking such things right now, but deep down, I know that Maya is going to be okay. She has to be. If I'm completely honest with myself, I'm relieved that my wedding didn't actually happen today. Part of me knew all along that Brady wasn't the one, but I had steadfastly refused to acknowledge that fact. Some ingrained beliefs from childhood had me thinking that I should be married by this age. Somewhere along the way, my life fell off the projected path that I had anticipated it would take. When Brady proposed, it felt like the easiest way to get back on track with where I thought I ought to be by this point in my life. Our engagement had started a rushing freight train of activities that felt impossible to stop once they gained momentum. I'd been concerned about actually going through with the ceremony and settling for a man who was just acceptable as a husband, rather than finding the love of my life, someone I can't imagine not being with for the rest of my days. I'm not sure if I would have actually gone through with marrying Brady or not. I guess we'll never know now. I was saved from that potential disaster by being tossed into a much bigger one. Maya's disappearance and me being the primary suspect is worse than anything I could have imagined. I'm not the criminal mastermind that the police seem to believe me to be. In fact, I feel guilty when I drive a few miles per hour over the speed limit or jaywalk across an empty road. The mere idea of stealing an entire person, especially my own sister, is incomprehensible. I'm so lost in thought that it barely registers that the movie's ending credits are rolling up the screen, until Austin does a dramatic stretch with his strong arms before saying,
"That was a pretty good movie, even though it was a chick flick."
Since he seems to be expecting a response, I smile and nod. He turns off the television and asks,
"Ready for bed?"
"Oh sure. Let me just use the restroom," I answer as my entire nervous system instantly kicks into overdrive. While inside his bathroom, I splash cool water on my face and forearms, but it does little to calm me. Tonight was supposed to be my wedding night. Instead, I'll be lying next to a man whom I'm much more attracted to than I was my intended groom. I can already tell it's going to be a long night. My body is too keyed up to get any sleep. After a few deep breaths, I stare at my reflection in the mirror and command myself to pull it together. Instinct tells me that Austin is too much of a gentleman to try anything with me. I'm not sure whether to be relieved or disappointed by that. As soon as I emerge from the bathroom, Austin takes his turn in there. He doesn't lock me up or even remind me not to try to sneak out. I'm not sure if that means he's starting to trust me, or if he's just confident that he would be able to quickly catch me if I attempt to make a break for it. Uncertain what to do with myself, I hover in the living room while Austin is in the bathroom. It seems presumptuous to go climb into his bed, but I'm fairly certain he won't trust me sleeping all the way out in his living room on the sofa while he's in his bedroom. When Austin emerges, he holds a hand out to usher me toward his bedroom as he asks,
"Ready for bed?"
If I didn't know better, I would swear his voice sounds nervous, but his tone still isn't nearly as anxious as mine when I squeak in response, "Sure." Once we settle on his king-sized bed flat on our backs, he snaps the cuffs around our wrists, locking our arms together. At my exasperated look, he explains,
"I'm a heavy sleeper."
After he turns off the bedside lamp, I stare at the ceiling, wondering how in the world I'm supposed to get any rest with this gorgeous, frustrating man attached to me. When I try to turn on my side away from him, it doesn't work as anticipated. Since I'm locked to Austin, I have to either leave my arm behind my back or bring his arm up and over me at a strange angle. Both options feel impossibly awkward. I flop onto my back and say, I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep like this. I normally sleep on my side.
"So do I."
He murmurs. After thinking about it for a minute, he says,
"I'll release the cuffs if you're okay with me sleeping with my arm around you."
At my wide-eyed look, he says,
"I won't take advantage of the situation. I promise."
I know, I answer in a soft tone, unsure why I'm so confident in him. I'm much less secure in my own ability to keep my hands off him while we're snuggled together all night than worried about him taking advantage of the situation.
"Is that a yes?"
He asks, already reaching for the key to unlock us. Okay, I respond, but the word comes out more like a question than an answer. After Austin unlocks us and sets the cuffs on the bedside table, I roll over onto my side. He turns on his side facing the same direction, snuggles into me, and locks his beefy arm around me. Our bodies meld together perfectly. Suddenly, I'm overwhelmed by sensations of warmth and safety. My life is currently in an absolute whirlwind of turmoil, but I've never felt more secure or cared for. Brady and I used to sleep on opposite sides of the bed, facing away from each other. That should have served as an indisputable sign that things weren't great between us. We definitely shouldn't have been planning to get married, but I had refused to acknowledge that fact. I've never shared a bed with anyone in such a close, intimate manner, and I like it. In fact, I more than like it. It would be so easy to get used to sleeping in Austin's warm embrace every night, if only he didn't believe me to be an outlaw.
Chapter 9. If someone had told me this morning that I would end the day with my hot high school chemistry teacher, Ms. Summers, snuggled in my bed for the night, I would have been convinced they were insane. Of course, that's almost the least crazy thing about all of this. The woman is the main suspect in an active missing person investigation. It's quite possible that I'm harboring a criminal in my apartment right now. Scratch that, she's not just in my apartment. She's in my bed and cocooned in my embrace like a redacted would be. What the heck am I thinking? I need to take her straight into the station. I could lose my job over this. I should lose my job over this. We have the best chance of finding Maya if we are quick to question everyone close to her, especially her sister, the primary suspect. And yet, I can't quite bring myself to make her get up and haul her into the station. Something about all of this feels off. I almost have myself convinced that the woman beside me is being set up to look guilty with fake evidence. The problem is, I've had such a raging crush on my former teacher for so long that I can't tell if my urge to believe in her innocence is a true hunch or if it's just what I want to believe. A significant part of my heart aches to believe that Penny is telling me the truth. I grin to myself over my permission to use her first name. I still can't quite get used to it, even in my own thoughts. It feels naughty to be so informal with her, even though I'm a grown man now. I guess there's a bit of lingering insecurity inside me that still feels like that dorky teenager who had a major crush on his beautiful teacher. Going for honesty, I whisper near her ear, I never imagined I'd be sharing a bed with Miss Summers. After a moment, I amend my statement. Well, actually, I imagined it many times, but I never believed it would really come true. She chuckles softly, but doesn't comment on my bold admission. After several minutes of quiet, the woman takes a deep, contented breath and snuggles closer against me as she dozes off. Her wiggling movement makes my redacted. There is no denying it, every cell in my body craves this woman, especially the ones in my lower region. She's the epitome of redacted to me, and she always has been. I assumed that her redacted appeal would have decreased with the passage of time, but she's somehow gotten even better with age. I'm more drawn to her than I have been to any of the women I've dated, or anyone at all, even completely out-of-reach models or celebrities. There's something that is simply irresistible about her. She's smart, gorgeous, curvaceous, funny, witty, creative, and confident. She's everything I could possibly want in a love interest. Oh, and she's probably a kidnapper, my mind inserts into the list of her traits. I don't want to want her. I know I shouldn't desire her, and that it's not in my own best interest. But those rational thoughts are struggling to win the war against my redacted. The only thing that keeps me from acting on that urge is the promise I made to the woman not to take advantage of the situation. I gave Penny my word, and I can't betray her faith in me, no matter how much my traitorous body craves her. Her light snoring is adorable. I'm uncertain how she can sleep with all that is going terribly wrong in her life right now, but I'm sure she needs the rest. Today had to have been impossibly stressful for her. I can't imagine being ready to walk down the aisle with someone and having it fall through at the last minute, especially with the unfortunate additions of a missing sibling and a potential kidnapping charge. She truly doesn't seem that upset about her ruined wedding. That knowledge gives me hope that maybe the idiot groom who let her get away isn't the man she is meant to be with. Of course, there are many reasons why I'm not the right man for her either, but that doesn't keep the strong surge of hope from springing to life deep inside my chest. I don't know if it's the forbidden nature of our relationship, or if it's true feelings, but there is no denying that I care about and want this woman more than I've ever imagined could be possible. I'm hot for teacher in the worst way imaginable. Grinning to myself, I decide to make the classic Van Halen song my phone's new ringtone. Even though the rock song was released way before my time, I used to listen to it on replay for hours every evening after high school as I daydreamed about being with Ms. Summers. Tonight's reunion with her is definitely not under ideal circumstances, but this is still a long-standing dream come true for me, and I plan to savor every moment of it. Besides, I might as well enjoy it since I'm taking the woman into custody first thing tomorrow morning. There won't be any more cuddling with her once she's in a jail cell. Sleep must eventually find me, because I wake up feeling refreshed and more alive than I have in years. Dozing next to the literal woman of my dreams must be good for my soul. I breathe in deeply, basking in the delectable, slightly floral scent of her. A man could easily get used to waking up engulfed in her feminine aura. My eyes remain closed for several long moments as my brain slowly emerges from the happy place that is midway between dreaming and being fully awake and alert. A wide smile is spread across my face as I slowly allow my eyelids to open. That's when I realize the woman that I thought I was holding in my arms is actually her pillow. Darn it. She's gone. I've lost her.
Chapter 10. I'm uncertain about leaving the apartment, but I need something to eat, other than peanut butter. If this breakfast is going to be my last meal as a free woman until this mess gets straightened out, I want something decadent. After thinking it over for a couple of minutes, I decide to go for it. If I end up getting caught by the police on my bakery run, then so be it. A sweet treat is worth the risk to me right now, especially since Austin is going to turn me in as soon as he wakes up anyway. I look ridiculous in the baggy sweats Austin loaned me, but it has to be less conspicuous than walking around town in a wedding gown. At the bakery, I have a difficult time deciding what I want. Everything looks delicious. Even though it's probably overkill, I end up buying a box with a dozen assorted pastries. I may not get to enjoy more than one or two this morning, but I can leave the extras as a thank you to Austin for letting me have one last night of freedom. My hope is that justice will win out, and I'll be able to clear my name with the police and begin actually helping with the search for my sister. But the evidence against me is pretty convincing. It's clear that someone is out to frame me for Maya's disappearance. It's slightly tempting to run for it and try to figure this out on my own, but I refuse to betray Austin's trust. He went out on a limb for me, so I won't bail on him. I care about him too much to do anything that might jeopardize his job, even though it means risking my own job and even my freedom. One would think that I would be dreading returning to Austin's apartment and facing the harsh realities that are coming my way today, but I have a definite pep in my step as I carry the pink bakery box toward his place. Even this short time away from the devilishly handsome man has me looking forward to seeing him again. I'd left his front door unlocked so I wouldn't have to knock and disturb his sleep to get back inside. Since he's a cop, I'd rationalize that no criminal in his right mind would attempt to break in, and if he did, he'd be sorry. As soon as I open the door, I see him and freeze. He's crouched down, tying on sneakers. It's tempting to run forward and launch myself into his arms, sending us both tumbling to the ground, but I have enough sense to know that wouldn't be a welcome gesture. Last night's marvelous cuddle session was a one-time event, due to Austin's need to make sure I didn't escape. I would be wise to remember that, but it's so hard to hold back. Our close proximity and intimate embrace in Austin's bed had felt remarkably real and vital to me, even though deep down I know it was simply a forced necessity on his part. I must make a noise in the open doorway, because he suddenly looks up. The look of relief and something much warmer is undeniable in his expression when he says,
"You're back."
His tone was filled with surprise, as if he had expected me to make a run for it. It stings that he thinks so little of me. I try but fail to keep the hurt feelings out of my tone when I say, "Of course I'm back. Did you really think I would take advantage of your trust and bail on you?"
"No, but then I woke up and you were gone."
He lets the end of the sentence dangle, since it's obvious what he thought about my absence. "I wouldn't do that to you," I say in a sincere tone. With that, he stands to his full height and rushes forward. My eyes widen at his sudden approach. I brace myself for impact, since it appears he's planning to tackle me to the ground and likely handcuff me. He comes to an abrupt stop right in front of me and gently engulfs me in his giant, comforting embrace. I hold the pastry box out to the side with one hand and wrap my other arm around him. Being held by him feels like returning home and plopping down on my comfy couch with a hot, gooey pizza and a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, after a particularly long day with moody teens at the school. It's absolute heaven.
"You're back,"
he repeats. The relieved way he breathes out the words near my ear sends a tingle shivering along my spine. Hoping to reassure him, I tighten my free arm around him and say, "I'm here." He pulls back slightly, and I instantly miss his reassuring warmth. When he lifts his palms to cup both sides of my face, my eyelids fall shut at the treasured and adored feeling that washes over me. Suddenly, I want this man to kiss me more than I've ever wanted anything. I tip my face up and soften my lips to give him silent permission, but nothing happens. My eyelids flutter open. His gaze is burning intensely down on me, as if he's torn about what to do. His voice is croaky when he says,
"I know I shouldn't, but I want to kiss you so much it hurts."
That is all of the encouragement I need. Almost before I even realize what is happening, I tip up onto my toes and brush my lips softly across his. Austin immediately takes control of the kiss, deepening it and raking his fingers through my long hair near the nape of my neck. The pink box of pastries falls to the floor with a loud thud as I become lost in Austin and his mind-melding kiss. When his tongue seeks entry to my mouth, I open my lips for him. Our tongues tangle together, as our chests heave and we press into one another. His redacted, leaving me breathless. My palms slide inside his shirt and up his back along his smooth heated skin. His hands find their way redacted. I've never been so swept away by a simple kiss, and I can't imagine how explosive our chemistry will be together when we move this party into his bedroom. Suddenly, Austin stiffens his spine and pulls back from me. I'm panting and desperate to resume our all-consuming kissing, but something in Austin's half-lidded gaze stops me from acting on that urge. Stepping back, he stares at the ground as he says,
"I'm sorry. I shouldn't have allowed that to happen."
With that, he turns and walks quickly away to close himself in his bathroom. Stunned, I remain frozen in the entryway to his apartment, out of breath and more redacted than I've ever been in my entire life.
Chapter 11. I can't believe I lost control like that. I never should have allowed myself to kiss Penny. Now, I'll never be able to get the blasted woman out of my head. That darn kiss was the hottest of my life. It was all I could do to stop things before we went way too far. Staring at myself in the bathroom mirror, I try to make sense of the past 24 hours. If I hadn't lived through it, I probably wouldn't believe it myself. Penny is even hotter than I imagined. Kissing her was the high point of my entire life. Every cell in my body is demanding that I stroll back out to my living room, sweep her into my arms, and carry her to my bed to redacted. Redacted. Instead, I force myself to think of Mr. Journey, the big, sweaty gym teacher from our high school. His face would turn bright red and spittle would fly from his mouth when he yelled. I was one of his favorites to berate. Thoughts of Mr. Journey only help redacted momentarily because I can't think of my high school days without recalling the short skirts that Ms. Summers used to wear. It's easy to picture them because, even after all of these years, Ms. Summers is still my ultimate fantasy. I splash some cold water on my face, but it does little to curb my redacted. Deciding I need to take more drastic action, I yell through the closed door, "I'm going to take a quick shower." Penny doesn't answer, but I can't risk going back out there with her now. I don't have the strength to hold back from touching her, and I can't risk having things go any further than they already have. I'm going to take an ice-cold shower, then I'll deliver her straight to the police station. It's the only course of action that makes sense for either of us. Harboring her is putting my job on the line and making her look even more guilty. The bracing water does the trick for redacted. Of course, one lusty look from Penny will send all of my blood redacted, but if I keep things professional and aloof, perhaps I can get through this morning without embarrassing myself further. It does cross my mind that she may leave while I'm in here, but she's already had plenty of chances to do so and hasn't taken advantage of them. Perhaps it's time for me to start trusting her. I believe in the power of justice. Penny will get her day in court and be allowed to present her case. She is innocent until proven guilty. Granted, the evidence against her is compelling, but we'll find a way to dispute it. I know in my heart that she wasn't involved in her sister's disappearance. After a quick dry-off, I get dressed and emerge from the bathroom. Although I'd been almost certain Penny would still be here, it's still a relief to find her puttering around in my kitchen.
I wasn't sure what kind of pastries you like, and they all looked delicious, so I got a variety. Luckily, they all stayed in the box when your dreamy kiss made my wits scatter, and I dropped it on the floor earlier.
She explains matter-of-factly as she selects a glazed bear claw and puts it on a small plate. Her casual compliment of our passionate kiss sends my mind spiraling in a direction I can't allow it to go. Trying to change the subject, I grab a chocolate cake donut from the box and toss it onto the other plate she has out, as I warn her in a light tone. I don't want to hear any jokes about cops and donuts.
Oh, I would never,
she assures me as she pours us each a cup of coffee from the fresh pot she evidently made while I took my cold shower. I'd been half expecting things to be tense and awkward after our earth-shifting makeout session. But instead, it feels natural to be joking over breakfast with the irresistible woman. I grab the remote and turn on the television so we can watch the local news. It's easy to see the big screen from our spots at my small table. As an overly loud commercial blares about special warehouse pricing on carpet, I check my cell phone. "Your sister is still missing," I tell her in a grim tone. Penny's soft sigh makes me look up at her. Her complexion is pale, and there are dark circles under her eyes, which tell me that she likely didn't sleep nearly as well as I did last night. My fervent hope is that she's truly worried about her sister's safety and not dealing with a guilty conscience. I go back to being absorbed in my phone until Penny covers her mouth with one hand and gasps.
Oh no.
What's wrong? I ask, almost afraid to find out, and burst the happy little bubble of solitude we've been enjoying. Pointing at the television screen, Penny says,
Maya's case is all over the news and there's a manhunt, or rather woman hunt for me. They truly think I had something to do with this.
She drops her half-eaten bear claw to the plate, as if the mere sight of it sickens her. I reach across the table to take her hand as I say, I'll help you get this all straightened out. I promise. Her half-smile doesn't reach her eyes.
You need to take me straight into the police station this morning. I don't want you to get into any trouble for helping me.
I won't get in trouble, I assure her, even though I doubt it's true. If anyone on the police force ever found out that I kept her here last night, I would definitely be at least suspended from my job, and more likely completely relieved of my duties. The thought of losing my badge is upsetting, but it wouldn't be half as horrific as watching Penny be wrongly accused and do time for a crime that I'm confident she didn't commit.
Are you ready to go?
She asks me, pulling her hand from mine and preparing to stand. No, just relax for a minute. Let's finish our breakfast first, I suggest, indicating our nearly full mugs of coffee and her unfinished Danish with my hand. In truth, I want to have a deeper look at what happened overnight on the case, so I know what kind of hornet's nest we're walking into. I'm sure our team has a lot more information than is being leaked to the press. Since I don't want to worry Penny any more than she obviously already is, I don't mention that tidbit. My phone screen isn't ideal for doing research, so I retrieve my laptop from the living room and log in at the kitchen table. I do my best to keep my features neutral, but from the wide-eyed stare Penny is giving me, it's obvious that she knows something is wrong.
What is it?
She asks, her tone dripping with dread. When I remain quiet, she says,
I can handle it. Just tell me. The not knowing and imagining the worst-case scenario has to be more upsetting than whatever you're looking at.
Even though I doubt that's the case, I can't keep this from her. I slowly turn my computer around so she can see the screen. Her eyes quickly scan the evidence screenshots, and she uses her finger on the trackpad to scroll down the page. The more she sees, the paler she becomes. Her pallor is practically green, and her shoulders are slumped forward in defeat by the time she reaches the bottom of the page full of evidence against her. In a voice that's so quiet, I'm not sure if I actually hear the words or imagine them, she says,
I'm going down for this.
As much as I'd like to reassure her, I won't lie to her. In a tone almost as quiet as hers, I agree, I'm afraid so.
Chapter 12. The mounting evidence against me is astounding. If I didn't know for a fact that I am innocent in Maya's disappearance, I would be doubting myself by now. Austin must be regretting his decision to have faith in me. The screenshots the police have of multiple online conversations between what looks like me and numerous different friends and family members over the past few days appear completely legitimate, even though I had no part in them. Pictures of the chats show me railing about how much I've always hated Maya, how she's ruining my big day, and how I plan to find a way to get even with her for always stealing my thunder. Not only did I not say or even think any of these things, they don't sound at all like me. This person is a spoiled brat, and there are more misspellings and grammar errors than I would make if I was trying to type with my toes underwater. I'm appalled that anyone believed these self-centered, error-filled messages were from me. Of course, the person typing them sounds erratic and deranged. Perhaps the recipients figured I was losing my mind from the stress of my impending wedding. In all honesty, I can't truly blame anyone for believing the threatening messages were from me. The hacker's account looks just like mine, with my profile picture and other information. They must have stolen my account log-in information or created a duplicate account to pose as me, but I have no idea how to prove that to anyone. It's mortifying imagining anyone at all seeing these, let alone close friends and extended relatives. The angry rants make me sound like a raving lunatic. No wonder the police are after me. One of the screenshots shows me on a group chat with my two favorite cousins, saying that Maya has always been a thorn in my side, and that I wouldn't let her ruin my wedding day no matter what. The person pretending to be me had actually spelled ruin ROOIN and italicized the last 3 words, which made the message seem even more dire and insane. Now that I'm thinking about it, several people had treated me strangely during the days leading up to my wedding, but I'd chalked it up to my pre-wedding jitters and them wanting to tread lightly so I didn't turn into a bridezilla. Turns out, me becoming a whiny, entitled bride was probably the least of their worries. They were concerned about me harming my own sister. This entire situation is completely surreal. Anyone who knows me should realize that I do my best never to say or do anything that might hurt another person. The realization that so many people now believe me to be capable of making these vicious comments stings. But what people think of me doesn't matter right now. The only thing that matters is Maya's safety. When I finally look up from the computer screen, I realize Austin has been intently staring at me. He's probably trying to figure out if I'm faking my shock over seeing these messages. Hoping that by some miracle he'll still believe in me, I say, I know this looks bad, but none of these messages are from me. He nods his head once. It's not the steadfast faith in my innocence I'd been hoping for, but I cling to the simple gesture anyway. Fear ices my veins as the full reality of this situation hits me. My voice is barely more than a terrified squeak when I ask, "Do you think this lunatic has Maya?"
Possibly.
Austin answers matter-of-factly. I'd been so convinced that my intuition about Maya being fine was correct, that I hadn't even allowed myself to consider any alternatives. Reading these threatening messages makes it obvious that someone is out to get her and planning to frame me for it. You have to find her, I plead with Austin. With all of this evidence stacked against me, I'm going to be locked up as soon as we emerge from this apartment. In fact, I'm surprised no one recognized me and turned me in during my pastry run. Please promise me that you'll find her and bring her home safely. Austin's expression softens at my pleading words just before he says,
We'll find her, but I need your help.
This proof of his faith in my innocence feels good, really good. My own father suspected I had something to do with Maya's disappearance, even before all of this new evidence surfaced. I can't imagine what he and the rest of my family and friends must be thinking now. But at least one person believes in me. I'll happily do whatever I can to help with the investigation from my jail cell. As a police officer, will you be able to communicate directly with me, or will we have to pass things through my attorney?
I'm not taking you in.
Austin says firmly. Yes, you are, I respond just as adamantly. When he shakes his head, I add, or I'll turn myself in. I won't let you risk your job for me, any more than you already have.
And I won't let you go to jail for a crime I'm certain that you didn't commit.
He responds. Tears well in my lower lids at his blind faith in me. I can't tell you how much it means to hear you say that, especially considering the mountain of evidence against me. I know I look guilty, but the truth will win out in the end. You'll find Maya and my name will be cleared. It's the only resolution to this mess that makes any sense.
I can't let you rot in a jail cell while you could be helping me find your sister,
he says. Perhaps I'll be able to get out on bail, I suggest, even though I know very little about any of this.
Bail would most likely be set at a high amount, way more than your teacher's salary and my police officer's pay can cover. No bail bondsman in his right mind will take us on,
he warns me. I love it that he is referring to us as a team. It doesn't make sense for him to believe so strongly in me or to unequivocally take my side, but I'm not going to question it, especially since he seems to be the only person in my corner right now.
I have some ideas for how to prove your innocence and find your sister. I need to make some phone calls, so just sit tight,
he advises me sternly. I nod, unsure what else to do. Suddenly, it feels like my sister's only chance of being found alive and unharmed rests on Austin's broad shoulders.
Chapter 13. I call in every favor I can think of. Soon, the police force's top IT guy is working to prove that Maya's live chat account was either cloned or hacked. I have my partner, Mark, looking for any possible connections who may have an axe to grind with both Penny and Maya, and I have sweet-talked the female evidence lockup guard, who has always had a bit of a crush on me, into calling me the moment anything new is logged for the case. My work friends must wonder why I'm taking such an interest in this particular case, and why I'm focusing on any angle that points away from the main suspect, but they refrain from asking me any questions. They all know I'm a solid cop and decent human being. None of them would ever suspect that I'm hiding a potential criminal in my apartment. I hate lying to them and relying on my stellar reputation to get semi-sketchy things done, but this situation calls for a bit of finessing around the gray area in the law. Turning in Penny when I know she's innocent wouldn't do anyone any good, especially since she might be able to think of something that could help us find her sister. Once I'm finished with my calls, I take a notepad and sit down beside Penny. I'm technically off duty today, but I put on my cop hat and question her relentlessly, carefully jotting down anything that might be helpful, no matter how trivial it may seem. Often, cases are cracked wide open by a seemingly unimportant detail. Penny handles my grilling like a champ, offering up any tidbit of information that she can think of and patiently repeating things when I seek clarity. It's obvious from her tireless work with me that she's desperate to do anything she can to help find her sister. By the time we finish several hours later, I no longer have any doubt about Penny's innocence. She had nothing to do with her sister's disappearance. Unfortunately, we didn't uncover any clues that might lead us to finding out the true criminal's identity or why that person has a grudge against the sisters. Although Penny had looked tired this morning, it's nothing compared to the exhaustion etched into her features now. She's obviously completely spent, but she still hasn't uttered a single complaint about my relentless questioning. When I glance at my phone and realize we completely missed lunch and are already past my usual dinner time, I say, "We need to order some food. You must be starving." Her stomach chooses that moment to growl loudly. We share a chuckle before she answers.
Now that you mention it,
It's charming that when I ask what she wants, she immediately answers,
pepperoni and mushroom pizza from Gino's with cheesy garlic bread, please.
With most of the women I've dated, they'll indicate that whatever I want to eat is great, but when I choose something, I can tell it isn't at all what they want, even though they claim it's fine. It then ends up being a 20-minute conversation that leaves both of us frustrated, so it's refreshing to be with someone who knows exactly what she wants and isn't afraid to say it. I must sit in stunned silence a bit too long, because she eventually adds,
If that sounds okay to you.
"It's perfect," I assure her, already reaching for the phone to place a delivery order. While I'm ordering the pizza, Penny gets up and feeds Bubbles. As soon as I'm done with the call, she says,
I fed Bubbles. He looked hungry too.
"Thanks," I say, grinning at her and loving the fact that she feels so comfortable in my apartment. Stretching her arms up high above her head, Penny says,
I think I've been sitting too long. My body needs to move.
She rolls her shoulders, then I enjoy the view as she folds her flexible body over and reaches down toward her toes. She's able to place her palms flat on the ground. The soft squeaking noise when she's bent over is undeniable in the silent apartment. We both freeze. When she stands back up, her face is already bright red with embarrassment. Not wanting things to become awkward between us, I address it directly. "I can't believe Miss Summers farts." The chuckle bursts out of her before she says, "Even teachers are human." I shake my head in mock disbelief while giving her a lopsided grin. Shaking a finger at me, she says,
Don't go getting any ideas that this type of thing is permissible in our relationship now. My farts are funny. Everyone else's are gross.
I tip my head back and laugh at the delightful woman before agreeing, "Okay, got it." We go to the kitchen and work comfortably together, as she sets the table for our dinner and I fill glasses of ice water for us. Soon the pizza arrives and we settle at the table eating our dinner and watching a game show, like an old married couple. The two of us are as relaxed and happy together as could possibly be expected in our unique situation, until my phone rings. Penny's eyes widen as comprehension dawns over my new ringtone. We lock eyes as Van Halen belts out the tune, "Got it bad, got it bad, got it bad. I'm hot for teacher." She's grinning from ear to ear when I grab the phone and jab the button to answer it. After listening to my partner Mark for a moment, I sit up straighter in my chair, suddenly fully alert. Penny immediately picks up on my cue and focuses her full attention on my half of the conversation. Wanting to get the entire story but needing to alleviate some of her suspense, I reply, "Maya's been found alive." "That's wonderful." My relieved expression falls at the next bit of news I receive. Unsure how to relay the rest without having a one-on-one conversation with Penny, I simply say into the phone speaker, "Oh no."
Chapter 14. My immense relief over hearing Austin respond into his phone speaker that Maya has been found alive is quickly squashed when he utters the terrifying words, "Oh no." The wait seems interminable, as I bug my eyes out in his direction and try to send him the silent message that I need more information. It's tempting to scream at him, but I don't want to do anything that will keep him from being able to get the full scoop on Maya from the caller. Instead, I do my best to be patient, despite my heartbeat pounding loudly in my head. I wring my hands together as I wait for him to hang up. When he finally hangs up, desperation to know what's going on with my sister clogs my throat, leaving me unable to ask. Austin quickly puts me out of my misery without forcing me to formulate the question. In a steady, firm tone, he says,
"Your sister is alive and well, but she has amnesia."
"Amnesia?" I ask. My mouth hangs open as I process this unexpected news. I'd previously only heard of people having amnesia in over-the-top, televised soap operas. It seems almost incomprehensible that it's a real thing, and that it's actually affecting my sister.
Maya was found floating in the ocean just off the coast of Delaware. She's safe, but she remembers nothing about her life. When her missing person case hit the regional news, the boat captain who rescued her recognized her and reached out to the authorities.
"She's safe," I repeat quietly, staring off into the distance and latching on to the comforting words. Suddenly, the full meaning of Austin's words sinks in. My gaze darts to his as I say, "She doesn't remember us at all?"
"I'm afraid not,"
he tells me in his no-nonsense police voice. Softening a bit, he adds,
"We'll know more once we're able to bring her home and talk to her. But for now, all that really matters is that she is safe. Even without her memories of her disappearance, hopefully, we'll be able to piece together what happened, based on where she was found, and get your name cleared."
My own sister doesn't remember me. Tears well in my lower lids as the realization fully sinks in.
It's very likely that her amnesia is temporary. Your family can take care of her and help her recuperate. Perhaps being back at home with people she knows will prompt her memory to return,
he suggests. Nodding my head, I stand as I say, "I need to see her."
And you will, but she's in a hospital in Delaware getting a full medical evaluation right now. Visiting hours are over. We'll make arrangements to bring her home first thing tomorrow morning,
he assures me. I nod as my mind spins. Pulling me down to sit beside him, Austin asks in a gentle tone,
"Would you like for me to reach out to give the news to your parents?"
"My parents." I gasp, unable to believe I didn't immediately think of calling them. Even though they doubted my innocence, Maya is their daughter, and they deserve to know the latest news about her. Already moving to do so, I say to Austin, "I'll make the call." My dad answers and puts the phone on speaker, so Mom can join our conversation. As soon as I share the news that Maya has been found, they both begin crying softly, obviously overwhelmed with relief. When I mention her amnesia, their first instinct, like mine, is to go get her, but I assure them that we will make arrangements bright and early tomorrow morning to bring her home. We chat and cry together for a few minutes. Eventually, my mom begins texting family and friends to spread the news. Before signing off our call, my dad says,
"We never really believed you were behind this, sweetheart."
Even though I know they did in fact doubt me to some degree, I cling to his words. Whispering through my tears, I say, "Thanks, Daddy. Goodbye." Austin emerges from his bedroom, where he had retreated, in order to give me some privacy. His expression is full of concern when he notices me crying.
"Is everything okay?"
I nod, but tears continue to stream down my cheeks. He rushes forward to comfort me. Swiping his thumbs across my wet cheeks, he looks intently into my eyes as he asks,
"What can I do to help?"
I'm uncertain how to convey my swirling emotions, so I merely say, I'm just overwhelmed by relief and gratitude that Maya is okay.
"I get that,"
he says, pulling me in for a comforting hug. I relax into his embrace, leaning my head on his wide shoulder and enjoying the warmth that naturally emanates from him. Swallowing down the overwhelming emotion clogging my throat, I tip my head up to look at him as I say, "You're the only one who never lost faith in me. You believed in me the entire time."
"Of course I believe in you,"
he confirms in a husky voice. Hearing those marvelous words uttered out loud is like a healing balm to my hurting soul. When everyone else, even my own parents, lost faith in me, you remain steadfastly in my corner. I can't tell you how much that means to me. His thick thumb swipes a stray tear from my cheek as he whispers,
You don't have to say anything.
Our gazes are locked together when I say, I'd like to show you with my body how appreciative I am. He swallows audibly at my bold words. I watch his Adam's apple bob, before leaning forward to gently press my lips near it on the side of his neck.
Only if it's truly what you want.
His words come out strained, as if it is taking all of his energy to hold back from claiming me. Tipping up to whisper near his ear, I say, I want this so much. I want you, Austin. When I pull back, I'm delighted to see the mixture of warmth and desire swirling in Austin's gaze. He only takes a moment to process my words, before tipping down to claim my lips with his. Our kiss is tender and passionate, just like before, but it's also filled with something more, a tantalizing hint of the desire and pleasure that is yet to come. My nerve endings come alive and zing with anticipation as Austin kisses me senseless. The nervous teenager who used to fumble his words in my class is long gone. That awkward boy has been replaced by this strong, confident, and virile being who is all grown up and 100% man. He's incomparably desirable, but I can't quite erase my worries and guilt over being intimate with a former student. When I pull back, we are both breathless. I say, I'm too old for you. You should be with a beautiful 20-something who didn't used to be your teacher.
We can stop if that's what you want.
Austin offers before adding,
But does this look like redacted who should be with any other woman? I'm an adult who is mature enough to decide who I want to be with. I choose you, Penny.
When my gaze redacted. Evidently sensing my uncertainty, Austin adds,
Something that feels this right can't possibly be wrong.
I try to think of an argument, but come up dry. I crave this man more than I've ever needed anyone, and he obviously wants me. A relationship between us might raise some eyebrows, but it really isn't anyone else's business. We are both consenting adults, and we are free to do as we please. Our former relationship as student and teacher is in the distant past. Now we are just two lonely souls who have managed to become safe harbors to each other. Austin waits patiently as I try to think through the potential pitfalls of being with him. He keeps a hopeful gaze locked onto me, but doesn't pressure me or attempt to sway my opinion. Grinning when I finally make my decision, I stand and sashay toward Austin's bedroom. Turning to look over my shoulder, I say, If you want me, come and get me. I take off at a run and hear Austin hot on my heels.
Chapter 15. Penny is in my bedroom doing the redacted I've ever seen. I've imagined being intimate with this woman so many times, but I never quite truly believed it might actually happen. She has always seemed so far out of my league and untouchable that my fantasies of her seemed like just that, unreachable dreams. Yet here she is, standing next to my bed in her lacy undergarments and giving me a half-lidded, come-hither look. I'm fearful of redacted from just seeing her so scantily clad. She's a literal dream come true. Scratch that, she's even better than my dream version of her. Every cell in my body is demanding that I lunge forward and touch her, but I remain frozen in place with my gaze locked on her. The mere idea of missing even a fraction of a second of her tantalizing show physically pains me. The quiet sound when she unhooks her bra is almost deafening in the silent room. I swallow audibly as my entire body vibrates with anticipation. Her movements are slow and redacted as she redacted over the soft curves of her shoulders. The air in my bedroom practically crackles with the electric charge vibrating between us. Wanting to be as redacted as she is, I redacted. Penny licks her lips as more and more of my redacted. She keeps her gaze trained on redacted, but she manages the whisper-soft maneuver without redacted. After turning around, she peeks over her shoulder at me and drops her hands to her sides. The dim light in the room allows me to see a shadowed reflection of her redacted in the mirror on my dresser. I can't hold back any longer. The need to touch her is all-consuming. I rush forward and wrap my arms around her from behind. I redacted as I lean down and press kisses along the curve of her shoulder and neck. She arches her back into my touch as I redacted that sets my heart on fire. You're so redacted, I whisper as I nibble on her earlobe. You're the redacted one, she breathes out as she loops her arm around to redacted. One of my hands continues to explore redacted. The knowledge that she is redacted. She reacts immediately, redacted. We redacted. She redacted. Redacted. I grab her hand within one of mine and begin redacted. She redacted. That makes the tiny hairs on the back of my neck stand at attention. By the time I have kissed redacted, she doesn't have to ask me twice. I redacted. Her hand squeezes tight around mine as redacted. Redacted. When she begins redacted. Redacted. More than happy to oblige her, I answer, yes, ma'am.
Chapter 16. I redacted. He redacted. My gaze is locked onto redacted. A breath escapes between Austin's clenched teeth when I redacted. Redacted. When I pause and look up at him, he gives me an adorable lopsided smile before saying, redacted. Oh yes, I redacted. As soon as he redacted, he gazes up at me with desire and warmth shining in his eyes, as if there is no better sight in the world than watching me redacted. After redacted, he lifts his palm to cup my cheek and gazes up at me as if he cherishes me beyond measure. That loving look is addictive, and I find myself falling so deeply into its depths that I never want to emerge. When his hand redacted, our gazes remain locked onto each other as I redacted. Austin redacted. Redacted. I've never felt so alive. He relaxes back and watches me redacted. He looks up at me and demands in a husky voice, redacted. Redacted. When it all becomes too much, I redacted. Redacted. We hold each other tight and redacted. I gave him everything, yet somehow he managed to give me more. Redacted. I've never felt so completely, marvelously spent. He makes quick work of redacted. Turning back to me, he engulfs me in his warm embrace. The twin sensations of safety and satisfaction wash over me. My body practically melts into a relaxed puddle on his mattress. Austin's voice is husky with emotion when he says,
apparently you still have plenty to teach me, even after all of these years.
I chuckle before answering honestly, I was just thinking that the student has become the teacher. He presses a sweet kiss to my temple. Squeezing me even tighter in his arms, he whispers,
I'm never letting you go.
Deal, I respond immediately, fully meaning it. With impeccably bad timing, his cell phone begins jingling with the ringtone I love. He emits a frustrated groan and lifts a hand to his forehead. The thought emerges to ask him to ignore it, but with his job and the recent danger my sister has faced, that isn't a viable option. With obvious reluctance, he releases me and answers the call. I can tell by the way his spine stiffens and his serious tone of voice that something important is happening. I'm desperate to know what's going on, but his half of the conversation gives me almost no clues. Eventually he hangs up and immediately stalks toward his closet to retrieve clothes. Over his shoulder, he tells me,
my partner on the force found a suspect who has a grudge against both you and Maya.
Intrigued, I sit up and use the sheet to cover my redacted. Who?
He's a former student of yours. Ted Parks.
He tells me as he begins yanking on clothes. I mull the name over for a moment, trying to place it. Suddenly it comes to me. Teddy Parks. At Austin's curious look, I relay what I know. He was a star football player, but he failed my class and missed the big final game of the season his senior year. He ranted about how I ruined his life and made him miss the college recruiters that were planning to come watch him play, but I assumed he bounced back, especially since so many years have passed since then. He wouldn't have done all of this just because of that, would he? I give Austin a bewildered look. Suddenly feeling the need to explain myself, I add, he failed my class because he refused to do the work. Apparently he thought he or his coaches could sweet talk or pressure me into passing him anyway, but I don't play those games. Austin nods as if he's well aware of my integrity. He's a grown man now. Why would he still blame me for work that he didn't do? And how does he know my sister? As he holsters his gun, Austin answers,
apparently, they briefly dated a while back and she dumped him.
This is news to me. I would have warned her to steer clear of the hot-headed athlete if I'd known they were seeing each other. An icy chill shivers along my spine as I ask, You don't think he targeted her to date because he had a grudge against me, do you?
It's possible.
Austin answers in a grim tone. My face must betray my fears that Teddy may be a complete lunatic, because Austin assures me.
We're going to bring him into the station now. I want to be there for his questioning. You're safe here.
I stare down at the bed covers and nod my head. Austin tips down to kiss my cheek before rushing out the door. He yells over his shoulder.
I'll lock up as I leave. Don't let anyone else in.
I won't, I assure him, trying my best to keep the shakiness out of my tone, even though the feeling that something bad is about to happen is nearly overwhelming. After he leaves, I grab some clean sweats and a fresh t-shirt from Austin's dresser and scurry into the bathroom. I'd been hopeful that being undressed was adding to my uneasiness, but my jitters don't seem to abate at all after I'm showered and fully clothed. In fact, my hands are shaky, and red patches are arising on my neck and chest. Staring at my blotchy reflection in the mirror, I say, "Pull it together, Penny. Everything is going to be fine." I almost have myself believing it, until I hear the unmistakable sound of glass breaking in the bedroom.
Chapter 17. As soon as my partner, Mark, told me about the grudge Ted Parks has against the Summers sisters, I knew in my heart that he is our guy. This gut feeling is beyond a hunch. He is the only suspect that makes any sense. It isn't in my nature to sit safely at home while others go retrieve him and bring him in for questioning. I may not be on duty today, but I need to see this through to the end. This investigation is too important, and I'm too invested in the outcome to leave it for others to handle. If anyone else knew where Penny is hiding, I would have been concerned for her safety. But we've kept her location a secret. There isn't any place safer for her to be right now than my apartment. We haven't seen each other in many years, so no one would think to look for her there. I meet Mark outside of the suspect's apartment building. We are just here to bring him in for questioning, but we are on high alert in case anything goes sideways. After nodding my head in greeting to the man who always has my back, I admit, I can't shake the feeling that something bad is about to go down.
I feel it too.
Mark admits, which does nothing to calm my edginess. He looks at his phone to confirm the apartment number, then we hoof it up the stairs to the 3rd floor. I'm glad for the tiny bit of exercise. Lately, I haven't been working out as much as I should. The last thing I need is to turn into a doughy and out-of-shape cop who can't manage a simple chase on foot. Neither of us are out of breath when we reach the numbered door to the suspect's apartment. I use my fist to bang loudly on the wooden door, but silence greets us. We don't have a warrant, so this is where the trail should end for now, but the queasiness in my gut won't let me leave it at this. I pride myself on being a good cop who always tries to do everything above board, but this situation is personal. I care far too much for Penny to simply go home and wait patiently for the new primary suspect to turn up. Penny and Maya's lives will both remain in limbo, and quite possibly in danger, until we find the person behind Maya's disappearance and lock him up. I can't stand the thought of this dragging out any longer. Mark raises his bushy eyebrows at me over the out-of-character move when I force the door open, but he doesn't comment on it. I give my partner a heavy-handed hint. Finding this door broken into like this is suspicious. We'd better check it out. Mark proves that he's an outstanding partner by nodding his agreement, pulling out his weapon and saying,
I'm right behind you.
I'd feel guilty about the obscene breach of protocol and complete invasion of Ted's privacy if I wasn't so worried about Penny and Maya. Besides, even if it turns out that the man isn't a criminal, he's still a bad person for blaming his teacher for his own failures. Since he's the only link we could find with a grudge against both sisters, going home without a thorough investigation isn't an option. At first, his apartment seems like any other bachelor pad, sparsely decorated and a bit messy. Sadly, it's almost a carbon copy of my own place. The realization immediately emerges in my mind that my apartment is already a lot less depressing with Penny staying there. She hasn't made any significant changes, but just having her feminine touch makes the place seem homier. The way she folds the bathroom and kitchen hand towels after she uses them, and the delicate floral scent that wafts in her wake, are simple pleasures that I've already gotten used to. In fact, I've more than gotten used to having Penny in my space. I'm already completely addicted to it, and her. It's easy to imagine her seamlessly fitting into my life, and filling in the gaps that I didn't even realize existed before she came along. Now that I know about them, my life would feel incredibly empty without her. Already planning to have a discussion with her about forging a more permanent relationship with each other, I'm almost giddy with anticipation as Mark and I make quick work of checking out the bland apartment. I'm nearly ready to call it a bust and get out of here when I hear Mark's stunned voice from the other room.
Holy cow.
After bolting in the direction his voice came from, I come to an abrupt stop beside him and stare in shock at the wall he's gaping at. Messy hand-painted lettering at the top of the wall reads, "The Summers Redacted." Below that are several snapshots of Penny and Maya, obviously taken without their knowledge. Red streaks of paint draw together a horrifying timeline with way more information about the two women than anyone should know, especially not a bitter, vengeful acquaintance. My eyes are drawn to one particular picture in the middle. I step closer to get a better look at the shot of Penny in her wedding dress. Numbness overtakes my system as I confirm my biggest fear and realize that I underestimated this criminal. In the photo hanging on his wall, I'm standing next to the bedraggled bride. Penny and I have only been out in public together once, and this lunatic saw us with each other. I should have figured out sooner that he would have been watching her from a distance on her wedding day, as his plan fell into place, and he waited for the fireworks over Maya's disappearance to begin. Her name clogs in my throat as I realize exactly where this madman is and race for the door. Penny.
Chapter 18. I always assumed facing my impending death would be terrifying. It seems like a highlight reel of my entire life should be playing out in my mind as I stare into the crazy eyes of my former student, Teddy. Instead, all I can think about is Austin. I hate it that he's going to find my body in his apartment, and I hope he doesn't blame himself for leaving me here alone. I would love to leave some type of message to let him know I don't blame him at all for this tragedy. He couldn't have known how wily and deranged Teddy is, or that the man would figure out where I was hiding. Unfortunately, the lunatic is waving a gun around and making it impossible for me to think rationally enough to leave a sign for Austin. All I can see is the barrel of that gun, as Teddy rants about how I completely ruined his life by failing him. Hoping to talk some sense into him, I try my best to stay neutral as I say in a shaky tone, "You're still young and you have so much life ahead of you, Teddy. Don't waste your future over something that happened long ago."
Long ago?
He yells, his face bright red with fury.
It feels like yesterday to me, you witch. I was a shooting star, heading toward fame and fortune as a professional athlete, until you took everything from me.
He's wrong about that. I graded him fairly based on the work he did, or rather didn't do. I also have my doubts about his unobstructed path to athletic greatness. It's a giant leap from high school football star to playing on a professional team. But I'm smart enough to know that pointing out his flawed logic would not be wise at this juncture. He's too upset to be rational right now. Instead, I focus on his future. If you hurt me, you're going to prison, Teddy. Do you want to spend the rest of your life inside a cell?
You're assuming those corrupt idiot pigs can catch me.
He sneers. I flinch at his harsh, judgmental characterization of Austin and the other hard-working police officers who put their lives on the line to protect us. There are some bad seeds in the profession, but I know for a fact that Austin isn't one of them. He truly believes in justice and serving his community to the best of his ability. I cling to the knowledge that Austin and his partner already suspect Teddy. I likely won't survive the night, but I have no doubt that Austin will make sure Teddy pays for his crimes. The dedicated cop will also ensure that my name is completely cleared with my family and friends. It would be even worse to die wondering if everyone still secretly suspects me of being involved in the abduction of my sister, especially since she has amnesia and doesn't remember if I had anything to do with what happened to her. I have no doubt that Austin will set things right. Teddy is pacing and mumbling to himself about how he's too smart to get caught. Turning to me, he sneers.
You hear that, witch? I'm smarter than you ever gave me credit for.
I practically have to bite my tongue to keep from pointing out that teachers don't just give credit. It has to be earned. But Teddy is too far gone to listen to reason right now. His hatred for me has been building for years, and no amount of rationalizing with him will get through his thick skull. Instead, I pretend to be sympathetic to his side of things. In a careful, measured tone, I say, "You are intelligent, Teddy. I can see that." I cringe backward when he stalks over and gets directly in my face to say,
"Then why did you fail me? I had big plans and you ruined them, you stupid redacted."
The angry man is even more terrifying when he's invading my personal space. His use of the C word is especially revolting because spittle flies from his mouth in my direction. I blink rapidly and do my best not to completely recoil from him. Common sense tells me that letting him see the intense amounts of fear and disgust swirling through my system over his nearness would not be wise. Taking a slow step backward, I say, "You are smart enough to realize that if you harm me, you will be caught and punished."
"I've already been punished by you,"
he shouts.
"It's your fault that I had to find work on the dark web. Now I have to put all of my time and effort into hacking. Granted, I make almost as much money as I would have if I'd gotten to play professional ball, but instead of being a conquering hero, I have to lurk in the shadows online and steal people's personal information to sell it to the highest bidder."
With a scary smile, he adds,
"That's how I found out everything about you and your redacted sister. I probably know more about you two witches than your own family does."
This revelation is bone-chilling. I can't stand the idea of this maniac knowing intimate details about our lives. His eyes take on a particularly evil gleam before he adds in a practically giddy tone,
"That's also how I connected with your fiancé, Brady, and convinced him to jilt you at the altar. It wasn't even difficult to talk him into dumping you. He jumped at the first cash offer I made him, even though I would have gone 3 times as high."
The blood drains from my face as I realize just how far Teddy is willing to go to ruin my life. Although I'd already come to the conclusion that Brady and I weren't right for each other, it still stings that the man I'd been considering spending the rest of my life with would sell me out like that.
"It was almost too easy,"
Teddy admits wistfully as if he's sharing a sweet story with a long-lost friend. His expression turns cold again when he adds,
"That's when I came up with the brilliant idea to kidnap Maya and frame you for it. It was the best way to get revenge on both of you and make sure the two of you got the punishments you deserve."
I have no idea what to say to his dark revelations. The maniac is obviously beyond reason. He continues, clearly not caring that I've gone silent.
"But then you ruined everything by redacted with that dumb cop from school and convincing him to hide and protect you. What would the school board think of prissy Ms. Summers redacted one of her students?"
He's a former student, I correct the madman automatically, even as I cringe at his crass use of the F word to describe the beautiful night I spent in Austin's arms.
"So am I."
Teddy sneers before asking,
"You gonna redacted me too?"
The mere idea of it makes the bitter taste of bile rise in my throat. My expression must betray my revulsion because Teddy says,
"Didn't think so."
His evil eyes become even more vicious-looking as he says between gritted teeth,
"Maybe I should make you redacted. You might as well be good for something before I put a bullet in your head."
The room swirls in my vision as terror ices my veins. The mere idea of being forced into an intimate act with him is appalling. Doing my best to sound brave, despite my frazzled nerves, I look at his redacted and say, "If you redacted, I'll bite it off." Teddy's beady eyes look almost as lifeless as a shark's, as he swings his beefy arm and backhands me across the face. Being hit is jarring, both because it physically hurts and it startles me. No one has ever raised a hand to me in a violent way before. I lift a hand to gently support my injured cheek. Austin's plain apartment swirls in my vision as nausea overtakes my system. At least Teddy didn't use the hand holding the gun to hit me, although I can't imagine my jaw hurting much more than it already does. Perhaps if he hits me with the gun, he'll knock me out, so I don't have to witness him pulling the trigger to murder me. I don't want the frightening, negative thought in my mind, but it won't leave me alone. These truly might be my last moments on Earth. I take a step back and lean against the wall. My legs are so wobbly, I'm not sure how much longer they'll be able to support me. It's tempting to slide down to the floor, but something tells me that Teddy would take that as a further sign of my weakness. He already has enough power over me, without me willingly giving him more. Instead, I lean back on the wall for steadiness and strength as I lift my chin in his direction, to let him know in no uncertain terms that he hasn't broken me.
"Like that, did ya? There's plenty more where that came from."
I hate it that I flinch when he lifts his arm again, but the reaction is visceral and uncontrollable. He drops his hand and guffaws loudly over the fake out, making it obvious that he's giddy to be terrorizing me.
"Not so tough or powerful now, are you, Miss Summers?"
He asks when his laughter subsides. He lunges in my direction, and I hit my head on the wall in a failed attempt to distance myself from him. His bulky finger shakes in my face as he says,
"I'm the one in charge now, and don't you forget it."
I nod ever so slightly, hoping that the obedient gesture will help calm his significant agitation. Rather than soothing him, the slightly submissive gesture seems to agitate him further. He begins pacing again and rakes his fingers through his hair with his free hand. Stopping a few feet from me, he says,
"We need to get the show going before your stupid cop boyfriend comes back. Do you have any final words, like an apology?"
I'll be darned if he is getting an apology from me when I didn't do anything wrong. I lift my chin higher, but remain silent.
"Nothing,"
he asks, then shrugs his shoulders as if he doesn't really care. Lifting his arm, he points the gun in my direction. Panic clogs my throat as my eyes circle wildly in their sockets, looking for anything that might help me. Finding nothing, I croak out the word, "Wait." Teddy narrows his nearly black eyes at me and cocks the gun. The clicking noise is deafening in the silent apartment. Through clenched teeth, he says,
"I've waited long enough. Goodbye, redacted teacher."
I squeeze my eyes shut and wait for death to take me. My entire body flinches at the sound of the shot. My last thought as I fall to the floor is that Austin will be heartbroken that he didn't make it back here in time to save me.
Chapter 19. I've been in countless life or death situations, but none so terrifying as this one. I sprint toward my apartment's door and slam inside. The scene that greets me is even more bone-chilling than I imagined. Penny is backed against a wall with her eyes closed, and Ted is aiming a gun at her chest. I don't even take a moment to think, I just react. The sound of the bullet pierces the air. Ted and Penny both crumple to the floor. I lunge forward. My only concern is Penny. If the maniac managed to get a shot off before I took him out, I'll never get over it. Grabbing her limp body in my arms, I quickly assess her for injuries. If she's been shot, I need to put pressure on the wound to curb the bleeding. I'm still checking her when Mark runs into the apartment. Proving he's an excellent cop, he quickly takes in the situation and runs over to kneel down next to Ted. One glance in that direction tells me that blood is pooling around the criminal's body. Mark shakes his head to let me know my aim was true, then immediately calls it in. I'm too focused on Penny to listen to his conversation with emergency dispatch. Sweet relief surges through my system when Penny's eyelids flutter open. She gazes up at me like I am a hot fudge sundae on top of a warm gooey brownie, before asking in a soft, dreamy voice,
"Am I in heaven?"
I chuckle before answering, "You're still stuck here on Earth with us mere mortals. It's a good thing though, because I honestly don't know what I'd do without you." A smile upturns both sides of her lips as her eyelids lower. Wanting to keep her awake in case she has a head injury, I say, "Stay with me, Penny. Are you hurt anywhere?" She flinches and lifts a hand to cup her cheek, before answering,
"He smacked me in the jaw."
My teeth clench tight together at the thought of Ted hitting Penny. If the man wasn't already dead, I'd be tempted to shoot him again.
"And I think he shot me,"
she says in a faraway voice. "Where?" I ask, trying to keep the panic at bay.
"I'm not sure, but he pointed the gun in my direction and I heard it fire. Then I woke up with you."
Her faraway smile is back. I want to sink into her loving look and stay there, but we need to have this conversation first. "The gunshot you heard was probably mine. I took him out," I explained to her. Wanting to make doubly sure, I ask her, "Does anything hurt other than your jaw?" She takes a moment to assess before answering,
"No, I don't think so."
At this, she moves to sit up. I arrange myself behind her, so she can lean back on me. When she sees the criminal's body with blood pooling around it, she lifts a hand to cover her mouth as she gasps.
"Oh my."
It's probably the first dead body she's ever seen, other than inside a coffin. I silently curse myself for not thinking ahead to shield it from her, but it's too late now. She turns away from the gory scene and leans back on my shoulder. I call Mark over to listen, as she solemnly reveals all of the creepy tidbits of information Ted shared with her about his crimes. We could likely figure most of it out from clues on the man's wall of terror, but she seems to want to get it off her chest. Besides, the more she can recall while it's still fresh in her mind, the better. Mark jots down notes as she speaks, then goes to greet the emergency workers when they arrive. Relaxing her head on my shoulder, Penny says,
"That's about all I can remember right now."
"That's plenty. You did an amazing job recounting what happened, especially considering that your body must still be in shock, I assure her, before pressing a kiss to her temple.
I've always been careful not to connect with former students on social media, but he hacked his way into my profiles and used that, plus leaked data information, to find out every detail of my life.
She murmurs. Needing her to believe me, I say in an adamant tone, none of this is your fault. He is a deranged madman who took things way too far. You did absolutely nothing wrong here.
I know.
In a whisper-quiet tone, she adds.
He paid Brady not to show up for our wedding.
And that redacted took the money? I ask, allowing my tone to relay how appalled and shocked I am. At her solemn nod, I say, then that idiot never deserved you in the first place. There isn't any amount of money in the world that would keep me from marrying you, if you agreed to be mine. Turning to look up at me, her hopeful gaze locks on mine as she asks.
Really?
Yes, really, I confirm. If I have my way, you'll never face anything alone ever again. In my book, we're in this together. Forever.
Wonderful.
She breathes out the word on a happy sigh. With that sweet promise of lasting love still fresh on our lips, I tip down so we can seal our deal with the kiss of a lifetime.
Epilogue. We're unpacking the bags of groceries Austin picked up on his way home from work, when he lifts the jar of strawberry jelly and says,
Marta, my usual clerk at the corner grocery store, always looks at me like I've lost my mind when she rings up this nasty stuff.
She probably is impressed that you're finally showing some taste. But if she saw the way you spread ketchup all over the top of your fries, like a barbarian, instead of pooling it in a neat pile in the corner, she'd quickly turn on you, I tease him, before tipping up to press my lips to his. As is usually the case, the simple kiss quickly deepens. Despite the passage of time, we still can't seem to keep our hands off each other. If anything, we only seem to grow more desperate for each other with each new day. Forcing myself to pull back before we end up redacted on the floor again, I say, no nookie until you feed me. I'm starving. Austin lets out a frustrated groan, but immediately unhands me. Waggling his thick brows, he asks,
Later?
Absolutely, I answer with a wide smile, already looking forward to it. This promise of marvelous things to come appeases him. We work together efficiently to make salad, spaghetti, and garlic toast for dinner. When I walk over to drop some of the tiny food pellets into Bubbles' tank, I ask, what do you think about getting another pet? Perhaps one that interacts with us a bit more, like a puppy?
A puppy?
Austin asks, obviously surprised by the suggestion.
That's a huge commitment.
I nod, fully aware of what I'm suggesting.
Bubbles is a loner who doesn't play well with others. He's like his father that way,
the man says as he strains the water from the boiled pasta noodles. Walking up behind him and circling my arms around his waist, I say, you play quite well with me.
Indeed.
He chuckles before adding in a serious tone,
I just worry about my job, keeping me away too much to be a good puppy parent. As more and more secrets are revealed from the live chat data breach, murders and other vicious crimes seem to be at an all-time high.
I know his significant amount of time away from home has been weighing heavily on his mind. Hoping to ease his concerns, I say, I'll make sure the puppy understands that Daddy is around as much as he can be. Sliding a piece of garlic toast from the baking sheet onto each of our dinner plates, I add, besides, it will give me someone to keep me company when you're working long hours, and I'm stuck worrying about you making it home safely to me.
You'll be the first person I text if I die.
He responds flippantly. That's not funny, I remind him, leveling a stern look in his direction. Knowing he's just trying to make light of the significant danger that can't be avoided with his job, to make me feel better, I force my lips to curve up into a smile before saying, that deserves a phone call, not a text. The surprised and delighted laughter bursts out of him, before he leans in to whisper near my ear.
How did I find such an understanding and marvelous woman to love?
I giggle as his soft-spoken words send a shiver down my spine. I guess you just got lucky.
Absolutely.
He murmurs. Hoping to get his approval on the new pet idea, I say, a puppy might give Maya and I something to bond over. Things between us are still impossibly awkward. I'm so desperate for her memories to return, but she still views me as a friendly if slightly annoying stranger.
Bonding with your sister over a playful pup sounds like a good idea.
he says as he sits down at the table. Is that a yes? I ask in a hopeful tone. When he nods, I'm unable to contain my enthusiasm as I squeal and move to plop down in his lap. Between dropping kisses along his strong jawline, I say, thank you. We're going to love having a puppy so much. He says non-committally, before asking me,
Have you ever actually had a puppy before?
When I shake my head, he adds,
They have razor-sharp teeth, they get into everything, especially what you don't want them to find, and they have to be potty trained.
Pulling back, I say in a somber tone, if you really don't want one.
It's not that. I just want you to be prepared for the challenges.
He answers. My expression must remain uncertain because he adds,
Besides, a puppy will be good practice for a baby.
His eyes are sparkling as I bug mine out in his direction and ask, a baby? You want to have a baby?
Of course, one of these days.
He answers as if we've discussed it a million times, even though this is a first. His eyebrows tug together before he asks me,
Don't you?
Yes, I answer, surprised to find that it's the truth. I've never really let myself think about it before, because I haven't been in a situation where it made sense, but yes, I definitely want a baby someday.
Someday.
Austin asks me. Moving to sit in my chair, I stare down at the table and say, it's probably old-fashioned, but I always pictured myself being married before bringing a child into the world.
Is that your sneaky way of asking me to marry you, Miss Summers?
He teases me. I ball up my paper napkin and toss it at him. He evades it and chuckles, before leveling a steady gaze at me and saying,
Because if it is, then my answer is yes.
Really? I ask, emotion clogging my throat. He nods, and we spend a long moment beaming at each other. When it dawns on me, I waggle my index finger in his direction and say, Don't think you're getting off the hook that easily. I still expect a real proposal from you, Mr. Zimmer. Tipping back his head, he emits a deep groan before saying,
I love it when you use your stern teacher's voice on me.
I shake my head at the exasperating man, but my annoyed pretense doesn't go far because I can't seem to wipe the wide grin off my face. Picking up on my amusement, Austin takes it further.
I've been a bad boy and deserve to be punished, Miss Summers. Is my redacted teacher going to redacted me?
When he flutters his lashes in my direction, I can't keep from laughing. When my chuckles subside, I say, they don't allow corporal punishment in schools anymore. He stands and pushes his rear end out in my direction. In a husky tone, he says,
I won't tell if you won't. You know you want to.
Glancing down at my full plate, I say, as hungry as I am, there's suddenly something, or rather someone. I want way more than food.
Me too.
He agrees. His eyes are alight with desire as he hauls me over his wide shoulder and carries me giggling and giddy to our bedroom.
Penny's sister Maya was kidnapped and now has amnesia. The only person she trusts is Roman, the gorgeous, cranky boat captain who saved her from drowning in the ocean. But what if her reluctant rescuer is the last man she should trust? Find out by listening to Delaware Dreamboat.